you ever seen Day for Night?
No. Is that a vampire film?
No, although that would be a great title for a vampire film. It's a
Yeah.
movie about people making movies that Truffaut made that
Back to the Truffaut.
there's one scene in that movie where this actress keeps flubbing a scene.
Mhm.
And at first it seems comedic and then it becomes tragic. And that's a lot like how us starting this second episode has been.
Crashing and burning.
Crashing and burning.
So quickly.
So many takes, and at first it seems funny, and then you realize the sordid psychic underbelly.
Yeah, I think we just have to like trudge through it and just have a sloppy start, but
That's
I'm sure
right.
there's something.
That's right. That's why we are starting right now with episode 2 of Archers of Horror.
Here we go.
I'm Eddie D, joined by.
Oh, you wanted me to say? I thought you were going to introduce me.
Okay, well, you're Rusty.
Hello.
Hey. And in this podcast, we are going to watch every single Arrow horror film there
Even
is.
the terrible ones.
Even the terrible ones, and we're going to spend an episode talking about them. I don't even know if the level of detail is entertaining or not, or who even knows? Who even cares?
Who even knows if they know Arrow films?
Well,
What?
that's true. But I feel that there is definitely a fan base for Arrow, and we will have at least 10 of those people listening to this.
Very good.
So our episode, we alternate every week. Last week was Blood Rage. This week was your pick, which was
Yes.
VAMP. And VAMP is a vampire movie from what year?
1986.
1986.
Yes.
Before we even get into that, as you might recall in the last week episode about Blood Rage, we talked about our favorite slashers. Before we even get into Vamp, I want to hear your top 3 vampire movies of all time, and I've got my list as well.
Now, to clear things up, now when you say vampire movies, it doesn't necessarily mean like a horror film. It could just mean anything vampire related.
Yes, and
'Cause I got some shocking picks.
and you've just revealed that you've got What We Do in the Shadows on your list.
Yeah, wait. Oh, I have that as well. So do I have to?
No, that's a good pick. I like that pick. But let's start with your number 3, and then I'll give you my number 3.
Okay. Now we'll preface this as saying I do realize it's not an excellent film, but I did grow up with it. I probably watched it
Fright Night.
hundreds of times. I'm sure you're going to know which one it is.
Fright Night.
But Once Bitten
Fright Night
with Jim Carrey.
Oh, wow! I've actually never seen that. Believe it or not.
There's so many elements to that film. Typical 80s film, but there's so many elements that just make it a great film.
Tell me about these elements.
Well, for starters, there's a great Halloween ball at the high school. Lots of crazy costumes.
Ooh, I like what I'm hearing.
If you remember Kooky Spooks, there is an appearance of a Kooky Spook.
I have no memory of a Kooky Spook. What is that?
It was like the cheap, like dime store, like blow up character that you put on your head, and you wore like a cape with it, I guess, or maybe like a plastic like chest piece. But one I remember, which was you don't remember them?
No memory.
Wow, where were you in 1986?
I was hiding in my room, and that's what I'm doing now.
He's never come out. So there's a great scene. There's a great dance off with one of the classic 80s songs, "Hands Off." I'm sure you don't know it.
I don't know it.
Jim Carrey, typical Jim Carrey. So no surprises there. But
how does this "Hands Off" song go?
I'm not going to sing it, but
oh, okay.
Stars Lauren Hutton, if you remember her.
Oh, I loved her.
I'm glad. And Clavon Little from Blazing Saddles.
Nice.
Yes.
I've actually never seen Blazing Saddles. That's why I just hesitated, because I felt like a poser. I know that's a crazy one to never have seen. And right now, all the fans are losing their mind.
I mean, do you know anything about Once Bitten?
Nope. I just know it's a comedy, and I wanted to see it when it came out I remember seeing the trailer, and it had some kind of sexy quality to it for like a little kid.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, basically, Jim Carrey's character is desperate to lose his virginity,
Hmm.
and his girlfriend is just not ready.
I want to. I really do. But I want it to be special.
So he seeks other avenues by going to a club where he meets the vampire, Lauren Hutton, who seduces him and wants to. I guess she needs to remain youthful by getting the blood of a virgin, and she needs 3 transfusions.
I'll give her
And it's
5.
I would give her 5 as well, but you know, it's just one of those fun 80s movies. I'm sure it doesn't hold up to newer audience, but if you grew up with it, it remains a classic.
Interesting that they go to a club, much like in the film Vamp that we have today.
Yes. Well, it's not a strip club. It's like a singles club, which I don't think exists anymore, but I did love the theme of the club where there's phones on every night table or every bar table, and you pick up the phone and you dial, a person you find attractive, you dial their phone, and if they pick up, you make conversation, and if it goes well, you go over there and you get a drink, and one thing leads to another. So
wow,
I think that probably died out.
I hope
in the 90s because
I hope
wish
so.
I had that
Oh my
growing
god.
up.
I never would want to go to a club where you got to call somebody. That's just adding another dimension I already hate.
Well, would you feel like you would get a lot of hang-ups?
I have some stories I could tell here, but I'm not going to. My number 3 pick, I think you're going to object to this, but you'll be very wrong, is Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, I rewatched that recently. So wasn't into it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's outrageous.
What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong?
I'll tell you exactly where you went wrong.
Mhm.
You need to take film as more of sometimes just a purely aesthetic. Someone help me. Aesthetic experience.
Well, what year did this movie come out? 91 or 90?
92.
90? 91?
92, I think.
92. See, that's where you lost me. If it was pre-90s, I'm okay with it.
Oh my god.
No, but I don't know. I just wasn't into it.
Well, too bad you don't smoke pot. Because I think you'd find something to appreciate in that.
Well,
film.
tell me where I went wrong. Tell me what I'm missing out on.
I mean, I'm just shocked that you can't appreciate the visuals of that movie, which are amazing.
I do appreciate the visual. I actually went to like a exhibit on the costumes, and that was very cool to see.
I actually have been wearing that red suit, red suit around town.
Which one, like the armor suit or the
armor suit? All right, let's hear your number 2 pick.
That was very brief on Dracula. So,
well, the episode's about Vamp.
Okay, so number 2, I'm going to say there's a lot I had. There's a lot of runner-ups, but I'm going to say another one that I grew up with that I love, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Wow.
Who didn't love Christy Swanson in her prime?
I hear that she's like a crazy Republican now.
All right.
Which makes me think I have a chance. But yeah, oh my god, she was the most beautiful girl in the world.
Yeah, she seemed almost like it was possible that you would wind up in high school and be dating someone similar to that.
Yeah, that's true. A lot like a lot like Dee Dee Pfeiffer in the film Vamp.
Yeah, yes, we'll address that because I'm pretty sure that if you grew up with this movie, you would have had a huge crush on Dee Dee Pfeiffer.
Oh my god, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and you were never really into the show, right?
I don't think I've ever seen one episode of the show. I mean, the most I could give you is there was a character named Angel, which was a spinoff, I think.
Yeah.
And then Willow, who was Allison Hannigan, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much all I know.
It's funny because I've only seen like 4 episodes, and we've definitely have to be the podcasting duo with the least amount of Buffy episodes seen between them in a podcast about what this podcast is about.
Well, if it was Perfect Strangers and Elf, then we would probably be the podcast that has seen the most episodes.
Well, I'm sure we've seen all of them.
Yes.
I've been going through a phase of listening to the Perfect Strangers theme while I walk around. It's a good pick me up, but it's not on Spotify, so you always have to have the YouTube going.
Is it like
You don't want anyone catching a glimpse of you watching that.
did you listen to the full version or the like the first season version where you get the fade out but it comes back in and it really hits you?
I mean, I feel like the version I've been listening to is there's no way that there was a longer version. Because I remember that when they started skipping like straight to the chorus and being a kid, and I was just like, oh, it's not as good, just jumping right in. So I think I've been listening to the full version.
But do you remember, like, I'm sure, I don't know if you remember the credits or the opening credits, but like it kicks back in at the end and you see like Mark Lynn Baker driving to Chicago, and he looks a little sad to leave his family behind, but it's very emotional, and you're like, I'm in this, I'm in for the ride with this one.
I forgot that he was also a stranger in his own way.
He really was.
My number 2 movie.
Yes.
Can you guess it?
Interview with a Vampire?
No, but that really could be my pick, because I recently was rewatching that for the first time in a couple of years, and I was like, this movie is fucking awesome. But I didn't finish it, so I gotta finish that. No, number 2, it's Fright Night.
Oh yeah, I actually have that on my list. It was a runner-up, but I figured you were gonna pick that one, so purposely left it off. That's a good film.
It really is. I watched it just like a couple of months ago for the first time in a while, and I was like, wow, this really is a good movie. It totally holds up. And the first act where Charlie knows that his neighbor is a vampire and trying to convince everybody, and it just keeps going wrong. That's like the best version of that trope, and it's just so enjoyable, and I had a great time.
I have to revisit that one. Haven't seen that in some time.
Yeah, it's definitely a very fun revisit, and I hear the remake is really good, but believe it or not, I've never seen it.
And I'm pretty sure you could guess that I'll probably never see it. Although I do watch a lot of remakes only to drive myself crazy.
Oh my god, you're so old. You're so old-fashioned.
Yes, that's true, but I do. I'm pretty sure you prefer the original. I know you like the remake of Wicker Man, but
what a low blow!
That is a low blow.
Okay, what's your number? Number one.
We're up to number one. Number one would have to be Lost Boys.
Oh, I should have known.
Yes, it has pretty much everything I want in a film, and being pretty much the same age as Corey Haim and Corey Feldman when that came out, I envisioned that I would have a similar lifestyle and form my own vampire hunting club for like a week. I realized that really weren't any vampires to find, so disbanded that pretty quickly.
You've always loved Lost Boys. I feel like you've probably imagined yourself being a Lost Boy quite a lot.
Well, I mean, it did have many of my young crushes, including obviously Jamie Gertz, but also Marco, played by Alex Winter.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's not leave off Alex Winter.
Those acid wash jeans and jacket, that was what the epitome of cool to me. Like, I thought if I had just one article of clothing that was similar to that, I would be like the king of the school.
Oh my god.
Which probably, wasn't the case, but
I don't know. I think you could have been.
Maybe.
All right. Are you ready for? Well, do you want to say anything else about Lost Boys?
I think most people have probably seen it.
Yeah, you definitely don't need to describe the plot.
No. Characters are really cool.
Yeah.
As a kid, very relatable to like Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, into comic books and horror stuff. So just ideal to me.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. Mm-hmm. The music, just like Apocalypse Now, elevating the Doors to something really good.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're
so. What's your number one?
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
We've got a tie.
Oh, come on.
We've got a tie.
You got to bring it out of tie.
I can't deny it. There is a tie, and you're going to be.
If it's Rockula and my best friend is a vampire, then I'm okay with that.
No, it is Let the Right One In.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And Return to Salem's Lot.
No, not the original Salem of the Lot, though. I think you called that trash at one point.
No. Whoa, slow down. I was in Australia 2016. I was in Minotaur Comics. I found this book, Studies in the Horror Film, Toby Hooper's Salem's Lot. I was like, they wrote a whole book about this piece of shit movie. I read the book in like 3 days. I loved it. I got every other book in that series, including The Exorcist, which was really annoying to get. And it made me appreciate Salem's Lot finally. But really? I'm talking about Return to Salem's Lot. Only because I loved it as a kid. It's a very bad movie. Not to bash Larry Cohen, who I bashed him in the last episode, totally by accident, when I insulted the stuff.
He's gonna come looking for you.
A movie I aspire to like. And yeah, but when I saw this movie you've never seen this movie before?
No, I don't even know anything about it.
Well, it's a very loose sequel to Salem's Lot, where it's way more comedic, like it's kind of a satirical take on vampires. And basically the only important thing about the movie is that there is an adult romance juxtaposed with like a kid romance. And it really taught me how to love. Now, earlier today you texted me, do you like Vamp? Just say yes or no. Don't elaborate. And I'm not sure if we had the same answer. But my answer is yes.
See, I think we're on the same page.
Cool.
There was many things I liked about it. If I watched it as a kid at that time period, I probably would have loved it.
Oh, yeah. My God. Although I thought about watching this on VHS, it must have been a whole different experience.
Oh, definitely. The restoration really makes it a very interesting film visually.
Oh, really? Seriously?
Well, what did you think when I presented the title to you? Now, I assume you weren't thinking this was a horror film about shoes.
No. Is it a horror film about shoes?
No, but a vamp is a part of a shoe.
Really?
Yes, but I mean, diving into it a little bit with a vamp, would you think Grace Jones fits the title?
I don't know. I mean, after seeing it, it's kind of hard to separate her from it, you know?
Yeah.
But no, this movie is not what I expected at all.
It was like all over the place, but it was consistent.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like, I would assume you would agree that the narrative is simple.
Oh, yeah, the narrative is very simple.
But just the way it's executed.
Exactly. It's like all the little things, like they make the interesting characters, like the guy who is like the old-timey guy, remember, with like the photos of Sinatra and all that? The guy who...
Yeah, you're talking about the character Vic.
You know who worked here? Louis Prima, Buddy Greco, Phil Harris, Class.
Played by Sandy Barron, who people would probably know as Jack Klompus from Seinfeld.
Drove itself into the swamp.
Wow, that was good research.
Yeah. Well, as soon as I saw it, I recognized him.
I did not recognize him. That's funny.
Really? And boy, did he have some wild eyebrows.
Yeah, he did.
I feel like I'm going to wind up with those eyebrows, but I do maintain them. So.
Oh yeah, I gotta always keep those eyebrows at bay.
But I did like his character as the MC of the club that they go to.
Yeah, he was great.
Was he now? He wasn't a full-fledged vampire, right? He was more of like a servant.
Yeah, he was like the guy from Let the Right One In that Oscar is, going to replace, the Richard Jenkins character in the remake.
Okay.
But it was a really interesting take because it was like he drank Grace Jones's, right? He was the guy who drank Grace Jones's blood?
Yeah, like she offered him the blood.
Yeah, so that was cool because it was like, oh, that was kind of a. I don't think that you usually see that character drinking the blood of the vampire, but it makes sense to make them kind of like, above human but not fully vampire.
This is a nasty habit.
I think. I mean, I would say even like the comedic elements of the film worked really well.
Yeah, I agree.
And even though it had all the tropes of a vampire film, it just worked extremely well in this setting.
Yeah. Truly.
And I was actually impressed with the acting too. I mean,
yeah. The whole cast, everyone in the cast is good.
Yeah. And from what I learned from the documentary, it seemed like they were pretty tight. So it definitely translated onto film with that.
It really did.
So for a director, whom is Richard Wenk, I've never heard of him.
He is like a really big writer. It doesn't seem like he did much directing after this.
Yes. I did look that up. Did not see anything that I recognized.
What, out of his writing credits?
No, out of his directing.
Oh, yeah.
That's a shame because it was, like I said, very.
It's a totally well-directed movie and it's interesting that he went on to a lot of action stuff because I think the action in here is pretty well executed. Although there are 2 moments that are very strangely edited, but we could talk about them when we get to that.
There's definitely some strange edits, and there's definitely some strange choices as far as when they inserted comedy.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I really don't have many complaints about the film.
Yeah, me either. The first time I watched like the first 20 minutes, and I was like, oh, this is okay. And then when I sat down again and watched the whole thing, I was like, oh, this is really good. Dee Pfeiffer is so lovable.
Oh my God, yeah. If I saw that in 1986, I would have had the biggest crush on her.
Oh, the whole time I was just imagining little Rusty being like, ooh, I love her. Do you know what other film she was in? I mean, she has a shitload of credits, but there's one.
I immediately recognized her from Falling Down as the cashier at the Whammy Burger.
I knew you would.
I want breakfast.
Well, you can't have it. We're not serving it.
Yes. But and plus we might as well add for people that don't know, just by the name, she is Michelle Pfeiffer's younger sister.
Well, she's tried to get out of that shadow and you just put her back in it.
She didn't change her last name.
Well,
so unfortunately, when you see Pfeiffer, you're going to assume there's a relationship to Michelle.
In the documentary, wasn't she so like charming?
Yeah, she really was. Actually, for the most part, I think most of them were charming. It was just like they seemed like a cast that I wouldn't mind hanging out with.
I loved them in the documentary. I was going to save this for the end, but I just have to say that documentary was great.
It was. Would you also say that does it look like that Billy Drago lived some hell of a life based on how he looked and talked? I feel like I could like sit with him in a restaurant or a bar or something for like hours and never say a word.
Oh my God. He's like exactly that guy. It even seems like they shot him in a bar and he just like sit down next to you and be like, I remember one time Marlon Brando tried to stab me.
You know, he's so recognizable, but I was trying to think of what films he was in. And the one that stood out to me was Invasion USA for some reason.
Oh, I've never seen that. And when it was in the Canon documentary, I tried to track it down and it wasn't available on streaming at that point.
Oh, really? I think it is now.
Oh, I'll check it out.
I did really like Billy Drago's character.
Snow?
Yes, Snow.
Yeah, he was cool.
I just closed.
You just opened. Again.
Now, you would have to say there was a lot of ambiguity with the characters, where they stood, what relationship they had to the vampire, to the club.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I thought it was cool that they didn't really define that. It seemed like Snow had a beef with the club crowd, definitely with the little kid and her posse.
What gang is this?
Yeah, I mean, the two leads of that,
yeah,
which we haven't even mentioned yet, would be Chris Makepeace,
yeah,
of My Bodyguard and Meatballs fame.
We've got to talk about Chris Makepeace in detail.
Well, where do you want to begin?
Well, the first thing I would say is he seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah, he really does. I think we should try to get him on a future show.
I loved him in that thing. But he also has a weird edge to him. Like, I tried to look up what happened to him because it seemed like,
He definitely left the acting world early.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He says,
It's funny that he seemed almost bitter at first, but I think it was just more like genuine. That he's just like a cool guy.
no, but he definitely has another interest, but I can't tell what it is. Like he might. Like at first, I thought, is that guy in prison? Just because like what he was wearing, and then I thought he looks kind of like a guy that would suffocate himself in a plastic bag if a comet was coming nearby.
All right, so we're definitely not having him on the show now, but
well, no, but I thought he was a great guy too, though.
Okay, well, he's back on.
Yeah, he's back on.
I picture his life more as like Rick Moranis, where like something happened to his wife and he's just like taking care of the family now.
Yeah, I can see that, but there seemed to be something there. I did look up his last film. It was a movie called Full Disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to this.
Never heard of it. So
the cast includes Rachel Ticotin and Penelope Ann Miller.
Oh, one of your favorites?
No, one of my favorites. You're the guy who's always talking about The Relic.
Didn't we see that in the theaters once? It's so unmemorable.
Yeah, but I thought you watched it during your 90s rewatch phase.
Oh, no, I actually didn't watch it. I think I bought it with the intentions to watch it, and along with like 30 other films that are still just sitting in the package.
Oh, what are some others?
I don't even know if I want to say, but just really bad 90s films like the Steven Seagal kind of films or like the Wesley Snipes films. Cruel Intentions. I know what you did last summer.
Ooh, I would love to watch Cruel Intentions now.
But I saw that in theaters and
me too.
Haven't seen that since.
Do you remember? This is definitely not going on the show, but do you remember?
Okay.
Didn't you see it with? And he was like, "We have to sit apart" because he wanted to jerk off.
That was Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh. Another thing about Chris Makepeace that kind of blew my mind is that he really came from obscurity into Meatballs, his first big role, which was such a huge movie. Like I looked up, it was made for 1.5 million Canadian, and it made like 44 million back then, which is just an insane amount of money.
Well, I think Bill Murray had probably something to do with that.
Yes, of course. But I'm just saying this guy was taken from obscurity in Ottawa to the heights of stardom. That's probably part of the reason why he's in this death cult now.
I won't say though, I don't know if you've seen Meatballs, but I hate that film.
I've never seen it, believe it or not.
Like, I actually grew up hating Chris Makepeace because of how much I hated him in Meatballs.
I really hope Chris Makepeace doesn't hear this.
No, but I like him now. I think in Vamp he does a phenomenal job. I wish he did more horror-esque films, but even his role in My Bodyguard, he was just an unlikable character. I mean, at least to me.
I don't remember him. I saw My Bodyguard in the theater and then never again. So my memories of it are like a dream with homoerotic undertones.
Do you at least remember Adam Baldwin?
No. Is he the bully or is he the bodyguard?
He's the bodyguard.
He's the bodyguard?
Yeah.
Wow.
Matt Dillon is the bully.
Oh, I'm siding with him.
Which makes sense.
I take his side.
Which makes I would have sided with him. But yeah, I mean, so I was when I saw Vamp and I saw Chris Makepeace, I was just like, probably something else I'm not going to like. But he was terrific in this.
Yeah, he really was.
And then let's talk about his buddy.
His
Robert
buddy.
Wrestler, AJ.
I had my issues with AJ, but they were minor and I could learn to get past them. But when the movie first began and I realized he was like that character that can always like talk his way out of something.
Guys, obviously you don't see the advantages of your position.
I was like, oh God, not this.
But he was also a good friend. And he was a good friend.
He was a good friend.
And he was a good friend.
But you have to say though, their interactions seemed really genuine, that they actually were longtime friends, not just like two actors put in a room together.
Plus accommodations, cable television, continental cuisine, food.
Yeah, they had good chemistry.
Yeah, their dynamics were, yeah.
I felt that when the guy was doing like like, hey, listen, let's make a deal here. Okay.
Now, instead of making us go through all these stupid, immature, what's the word I'm looking for? Asinine tests, which, by the way, we find incredibly boring.
In all of those moments, there was something dead-eyed about him that I didn't really buy him as like this super suave like mastermind.
But I think that was also part of his character too. Like, I don't think they were like the coolest guys on campus. Like, I think he was more cool in the eyes of Chris Makepeace's character.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was awesome.
But anyways, for people wondering, he was in A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Robert Russler. Yeah. He was also in Weird Science, but for some reason, I can't place him.
And you're a bit of a Weird Science expert.
I am. I haven't seen it in a while, but the way they feed off each other in that sequence, like where they're filling each other's words.
Yeah, no, that was good. And that was a clever scene. I was like, oh, this is like, if I read this in a script, I'd be like, ooh, this is a good writer.
One of the other things before we get into it about the film itself as a whole, the lighting.
Oh, yeah.
The lighting really worked for this film.
The lighting in the movie is so unique and so distinctive. And almost every scene has like a green and magenta, right? Are those the colors?
Yeah. Yeah, like a neon green and a neon pink or magenta.
The colors in this movie are very now. That's why Vamp is ready to break out just like Blood Rage is.
Well, the cool thing about it is it's actually kind of a homage to like Mario Bava's work.
Oh, cool.
Like if you look at like Black Sabbath, like a lot of that lighting in that film is exactly the same. The greens and the pinks.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool that they did that. And they seem to. It was pretty much only in the vampire world though. But in the beginning, as we learned in the documentary, the use of shadows was kind of.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
In the documentary, the DP Elliot Davis, that guy is a baller.
Mm-hmm.
He really knows what he's doing.
What else has he done? Do you know?
He did Twilight.
Oh.
He did three movies that have a real connection to my life. The first one, White Oleander.
Wait, which one?
White Oleander. It's the other movie that has been made from a Janet Fitch novel, Paint It Black being the other one that I co-wrote, co-produced. Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, featuring Gabriel Anwar, who I really thought I was going to marry at some point in my life.
That was one of your crushes as a kid?
Oh, huge. And then the third movie, Get on the Bus, which nice. You often taunt me for having had a poster of in my teen years.
As it's true. It's very random.
I'll let the audience decide if that's problematic or not. But yeah, the lighting in this movie, the look of this movie, it's so unique and so stylish in such a cool way. I wrote down at one point, it reminded me of Suspiria meets a Trapper Keeper.
Oh my God, that's a good analogy.
Thank you.
Makes me want a Trapper Keeper again.
I bet they're available.
It's funny because now that I think about it, when you said the piece of Suspiria art that I bought that was an ink illustration, that it should have been colorized, and I agree. No, I agree with you that it should have been.
For the audience at home, Rusty recently bought a black and white Suspiria picture, which is,
it's cool in its own right, but
a bit like going to the party and not dancing, and I would know all about that.
I would too. So in theory, I did what I'm supposed to do.
I guess you did. All right. So I just want to keep going over the crew for one more second here.
All right. Before we get to the femme fatale of the film, let's just talk about Getty Watanabe.
Huge for the Eddie community, Getty.
It'll be a pleasure helping you guys out. Can I call you guys? Great.
And he's a great guy. It seems from the documentary.
He plays his recurring role as the dork.
Mostly get your basic dorks hanging around here. They seem to gravitate towards me. I don't know
Why?
or the unlikable dweeb or whatever 80s term. But I think he's successful in pulling off that role.
I think he is fucking great in this movie, and he has some hilarious lines.
He does have some really hilarious lines that still hold up.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I laughed out loud. It's not going to sound funny now, but when he's like, "And I am a meal ticket," I don't know. It's like, I can't even. I wish I could remember the first part of the joke. I'll edit that out.
I like the part. I like one of his jokes that I thought was pretty funny when he's talking to one of the strippers, and he asks her, "What time does she get off?" And she says 2:30, and he says, "Can I watch?" And then cracks himself up.
That seems like such a classic dirty joke. I can't believe I've never heard it before.
I know it does seem very like vaudevillian.
Do you have anything else to say about Getty, or should we move on to the producer?
For anybody wondering, I'll just say that he was in 16 Candles. He was the foreign exchange student.
Yeah.
Oh, and it says like OCC girlfriend.
I wasn't gonna touch that one.
Okay. Well, people might not know who he is.
The thing is, when I saw him, I was like, "Oh shit! It's an '80s movie. This is an Asian character. This is going to be fucked up." But the movie, not fucked up at all.
No, exactly. And plus, in the documentary, he's a really cool guy. He seems like somebody that would also be fun to hang out with.
Yeah, I really like that documentary. Is so good. I can't praise it enough.
I like the fact that he didn't even have to audition. He was just given the role. Mm-hmm. And he pretty much, I think, that you found out from the documentary that he just accepted it because he got to play a vampire in one scene.
Yeah, that was such an interesting anecdote. He talks about how he really wanted to have the makeup done and wanted to be a monster, but then when the makeup was complete, he looked in the mirror and felt like he was looking at his grandfather. And he wanted the makeup off of him. And he described it in such human terms, and it was just a great story.
Yeah.
Interesting. I would love. I'm next time I'm casting anything, Getty is going to be the star of every role.
Does he still act? I haven't looked at his biography.
Yeah, he's done a lot of voice acting.
Oh, okay.
That seems like his focus now, but he's definitely been working quite a lot, and seems like he's having a good life. It's interesting that he had that feeling about the vampire because the makeup artist Greg Canham, this guy, a huge makeup artist that I had never even heard of before. But it seems like one of his specialties is old age makeup. He did the old age makeup in Titanic, but he also was the makeup artist in Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is a great credit.
Circling back to Dracula, okay.
He worked on Star Trek VI with our friend Ed French from Blood Rage.
All right.
You're going to love this. Are you ready for this credit?
Hit me.
Monsters.
Monsters.
The TV show Monsters. Well,
why is it that I'm trying to place it? I know the name.
You don't remember the opening of Monsters?
Going
through the town and then coming into the house, and it's like a monster family getting ready. And
was one of them? I assume. I'm not assuming. One would look like a potato, right?
Yeah. One looked like a potato. Here's this random story about Monsters. Okay. When it would go to the commercial, it would make this really horrifying sound, like ring. And one time, my friend Zhang did it, and then Justin was like, "Please never do that sound again." And then Lee would just always come up to Justin and go ring. And Justin said to me, he's like, "What's with that guy? Like, what the fuck? What is that noise he's always doing in my ear?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's the sound that it would make in this horror anthology show from the 80s when it would go to commercial." And he's like, "What? Why would he be doing that to me in my ear?" But Greg Canham also did The Lost Boys and Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Although there's a few big people credited on Nightmare on Elm Street 3, so I think that must have been a big team.
I'm looking at the credits for Monsters, and I'm looking at the cast that made appearances. Wow, that's impressive.
Oh, yeah. It was like a... well, I really should remember what channel it was on, but it definitely was like a higher budget than Tales from the Dark Side, for instance.
Yeah, wow. Crazy. Steve Buscemi was in an episode.
Hold on.
All right, I'm not going to list all the people that were on the show.
Oh, okay.
That's crazy. Soupy sales. We got some soupy sales in there.
All right. I just want to point out one credit I want to point out.
What's that?
The producer, Donald Borchers. Did you look into him at all?
No, I did not.
He seems like he's had a pretty cool career. But he did Children of the Corn. Hold on. My allergies now from the fort of blankets and mattresses I've built for myself. I'm now dying on the air. So if the line just goes silent, continue the show and have someone come retrieve my body. But anyway, Donald Borchers, one of the movies he produced really challenged me as a kid sexually.
Which one is this?
Tough Turf.
Oh, wow. That's funny that you say that. I didn't even know you saw that film.
I didn't. It was the box cover.
So you never even seen it and you were challenged sexually?
I was, because I thought everyone on the box I was attracted to, and I was like, I don't know what to do with these feelings.
I'm trying to see. I've actually seen this film too. I know James Spader is like the focal point on the box, but who are the other ones?
Robert Downey Jr. and
oh yeah, that's right. That was like one of his earlier roles as well, right?
I'm pretty sure it's his very first.
Yeah.
And a very attractive 80s style lady.
Who was? Yeah, you don't know who the girl was, the lead?
No.
Why
don't we look that up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now. Oh, it was Kim Richards, who I've seen in several things, but I would never.
From Planet of the Apes. No, that's Kim. That's Kim something else.
Kim Hunter?
Yeah.
You forgot who Kim Hunter is?
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought it was...
She's rising from the grave. And
I thought it was James Spader, Robert Downey Jr., and Kim Hunter as the love interest.
They crimped her hair. No one knew.
You're so damn ugly.
I would just like to picture her in her 60s playing like a teen in like a miniskirt with crimped hair.
Wow. Tough Turf. Who knew?
That's right. She was in Different Strokes. She was on Different Strokes a few times.
Who was she in Different Strokes?
I don't know. I'm guessing she was probably one of Kimberly's friends, but I don't know.
Yeah, she's probably not one of Arnold's friends.
We knew Arnold's friend was the bicycle shop owner.
Oh my Lord.
Listen, guys, if you have not gone skinny dipping, you have missed one of the great joys in this life. I think I got some pictures around here of a bunch of us skinny dipping. You guys are going to love them. Let's see if I can find them.
So Tough Turf challenged you sexually.
Yes.
And as an adult, have you recovered? Have you figured out who you are?
I had this thought earlier. I think I'm going to figure myself out in like a month. Like, I think that...
After you rewatch the V series?
After I rewatch the V series? What does that even mean? Why, because of my little boy crush on Diana?
Yes.
Well, yeah, probably. But I feel that maybe I do have some kind of fetish or some kind of sexual issue, and I think in like within a month I'm going to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you have, if you have anything to say about that, or
I'll let our audience write in some questions. You'll address them in a future episode. But anyways, back to Vamp. So, even though, as we said, it was a pretty simple narrative, the director did state that he did treat it like a piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does feel like a piece of art watching it.
Oh yeah, I mean it is a great movie, and the fact that they almost, instead of Grace Jones, they were going for someone more kind of generically hot.
Yeah, like a very sexual.
Yeah, like as the director said in From Dusk Till Dawn, which is obviously borrowing a lot from this movie, the Salma Hayek character, that was like his original take.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what she brings to the table. It's very avant-garde.
Oh, yes.
A lot of it she brought herself. A lot of the costume choices were her own.
Mm-hmm.
The music that she performs to when she first appears, that is an original piece that she sang and never released for some reason.
And she choreographed the dance.
Mm-hmm. When she showed up to set, she had a huge entourage with her, which included Andy Warhol and Keith Haring.
Yeah.
And the chair looks exactly like a Keith Haring work.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I thought was kind of cool, stylistically. Cool. And she's very eccentric on and off set.
Oh yeah, they were saying that she, and you can totally imagine this, in pre-production was super involved, was super like, the set's gonna look like this, I'm gonna do this, like was rehearsing all the time. And then when it came time to shoot, she would sometimes show up like 8 hours late and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it really sounds like this shoot is probably one of the most classic behind the scenes stories ever.
Yeah, it seemed like when during the documentary, the cast didn't want to, obviously, she didn't appear in it, so they didn't want to badmouth her, but they kind of made it clear that she was very difficult to work with.
Oh, yeah. And there's excerpts from her memoirs, which I kind of want to read in the booklet that are about her experience on the movie.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
But it seems like she remembers it fondly. And also, I'm assuming your introduction to Grace Jones was Conan the Destroyer?
Yes.
Yeah, mine too.
Be off.
Let me speak to Conan.
I said be off.
The other story with her was that on set she constantly had a vibrator with her.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if that was an artistic choice or just, I don't know.
I guess sometimes you just have to have a vibrator with you.
The other thing that's weird is that she doesn't have one line in the film.
Oh, yeah. By her
and choice. That worked. I think totally it's preferred. Works.
Yeah. And as I'm sure you also read, her look in the opening strip scene is based on Pris from Blade Runner.
Yeah. I thought that when I was watching it, and then I did read that. Outfit that she wears while performing, like I said, it's very avant-garde. It's, like a headpiece and like with like, how would you describe her?
Like radials, like on a stove, kind of like those radial things. Is that not the word, radials?
the stove covers on like on a gas stove.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're called radials.
Everyone calls them radials.
Okay. Anyways, it's that, but she also has her, body painted.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look up like recent performances, she still kind of wears outfits like that. She still paints her body that way. So.
Okay, what's our next?
We might as well just jump into the film itself.
Yeah, let's talk about the movie, which starts out at USC.
Yeah.
But we don't know it's USC.
No, because they're 200 miles from civilization.
Wait.
Which I don't know any university that's 200 miles from civilization.
Wait, when did it say that?
When they're discussing, when Keith and AJ are discussing going to a strip club, and they said that they were 200 miles from, from 200 miles from civilization, pretty much that.
Oh, I think I missed that because it is interesting. The geography of the movie is very bonkers because at one point they go from USC and they go downtown, but in between that they come from a whole different approach. So I guess it makes sense that I didn't realize they were supposed to be in a kind of more of a country area. I missed that whole part.
Well, maybe on the third time watching it, you'll pick it up.
Maybe I will.
But watching it, I was assuming, because I know they shot on USC, and then, a lot of it was shot in downtown LA, and I wondered if you recognize a lot of the set.
Oh, I recognize so much of it. In the scene when they're driving, they drive right past my street. They go, they go past Spring on 7th. That's like 4 blocks away from me.
For the record, what's your address again?
The funny thing is, I actually took the Metro home last night, and I had the Blu-ray for Vamp in my pocket. Yes, it fit in my pocket. So I was walking through downtown LA with Vamp in my pocket.
That's pretty cool.
At one point, I when I was walking to the Metro, I walked past this restaurant, the Alcove, and I saw this director who directed my Sci-Fi Channel movie. And I was like, am I going to say anything? and I was like, maybe I'll catch his eye, and like he totally didn't look at me, and I was like, all right, I just gotta have to say something. So I was like, hey, what's up? And he was with a friend, and the friend was just staring at the copy of Vamp in my pocket, clearly thinking like, something wrong with this guy? Like, why is he walking around with this giant DVD in his pocket? But it's just funny that this guy who's so into monsters, it's like, I put Vamp in my pocket, I kind of summoned him into my life.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch it with him?
No, but he would have enjoyed the film, I'm sure.
I don't know if you knew, but the first day of shooting was the day of the Challenger disaster.
I did see that in the documentary.
So was what, January 1986?
Yeah.
And the film came out in 86?
Yeah, because they mentioned that they stopped shooting in February and it was released in June. That's a really insane turnaround.
Yeah, that is pretty insane.
Because they mentioned also that the director only had 3.5 weeks for editing.
Okay, so basically, I guess I'll start. It pretty much opens with our heroes, AJ and Keith.
Yeah, in a cool misdirection scene. You think at first that there's these two prisoners, and it seems like they're in medieval monk times, and you think they're going to be executed, but it turns out it's a frat initiation.
Right, so they're being paraded around USC campus, which is weird because it's like broad daylight, which I didn't think hazing happened at that time of day.
We don't tell you about how we live, bro.
So anyway, so then they're brought to a room where we see another person being hanged, and we see that our heroes are also going to be hanged, and we're thinking, like you said, with the misdirection, we don't know what's going to happen to these characters. And then one of the voices of the initiator, I have cut this because how am I trying to say this?
No, I think initiator is a pretty good word for it.
No, but what happens? I'm trying to remember now. Something happens with that tape.
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird because it's like he's lip syncing the speech, but he could have been giving the speech. But it kind of like the tape kind of skips. Where it's revealed that this is actually a frat, not like, evil blood monks.
So at this point, Keith and AJ are kind of fed up.
Yeah.
And thinking that the fraternity is kind of lame.
Yeah, we get the sense that these guys are too cool for this frat, but they want a place to live.
Yeah, the housing sucks. And they want like cable TV, they want like a nice bed and good food. So this frat is ideal for them. And they make an offer to the frat that if they give them booze and a party with good booze and tunes and stuff.
Booze, tunes, and entertainment. Those are the three things they say.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
What, you're going to need booze? Booze. You're going to need tunes? Tunes. You're going to need entertainment.
Booze is easy.
We provide it.
So they're like, look, we're going to do that. But which friend is which? Which friend is Chris Makepeace?
Keith is Chris Makepeace and AJ is Rob Bressler.
Yeah. So Keith already knows like, oh, AJ, don't even say entertainment. And then they get the idea that like they've got to get a stripper to bring to this party.
Right.
And that's the setup for the movie, basically.
Yeah. But the weird thing is then we see where they're back in their dorm room talking about like, oh, how we're going to get a stripper. What are we going to do? Wouldn't you assume that getting a stripper is probably pretty easy to hire?
I would think so. I mean, of course, back then, but I think the phone book, you could do it in the phone
book. Maybe that's why they set it up that they're 200 miles from civilization in order for that to work.
That must be why they did that.
So the thing now, the first problem they run into is that they have to drive to. They never say it's downtown LA, right?
No, I don't think they do.
Okay, so they need to get a car, and they both look at each other at the same time after they say, "Oh, we need a car," and they say
Duncan.
And Duncan is the Getty Watanabe character.
Wait, I can't believe I'm saying let's go back a minute because I said let's not do that, but let's go back a second. Okay. I just wanted to point out two things. One thing is that AJ carries the whole payphone with him as he's like making calls, which on the one hand you're like, oh, that's a pretty clever thing to do, but then you're also like, wait, the guy's carrying a whole payphone. That's crazy. But the other thing I wanted to mention was the compound bow, which comes up throughout the movie. Compound bows, they really had a moment in the 80s. Was it because of Rambo? Or, it seems like they came up back then. Now you don't really hear about them too much.
Well, my first thought was when Keith pulls out the compound bow is, all right, this is obviously foreshadowing. This is going to appear again somewhere in the film.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously going to use it at some point, which he does. But it's just a weird scene.
But doesn't he get a different bow? That's the weird thing.
Yeah, he finds one in a pawn shop later on.
Yeah, so I guess it's not that weird, but it's, yeah.
But it's weird that they're just talking, and then out of nowhere he picks up the bow and the arrow and then shoots an apple on a table.
Oh, I forgot about him shooting the apple. That whole bow and arrow thing must have hit a little too close to home for you, huh?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm referring to?
When you do you want me to say? Because it's probably not the same thing you're thinking of.
Well, what are you thinking?
Wait, but that was a BB gun. I thought you were talking about when you shot out your window.
No, I was talking about when I was in third grade and you were in second grade. Although you're older than me, I'll let the audience draw their own conclusions.
Oh, come on, you better edit that out.
And I had a club, the Monster Squad, and when we were being assigned weapons, you wanted the bow and arrow, but some other kid took it, and then you cried.
Can we say allegedly cried? Because I don't remember that. I'm not denying it, but I do not remember.
You did cry.
We're the Monster Squad.
Are you sure I didn't cry because you didn't let me play the muscle game on NES? I could see that would be a reason to cry.
No, you cried because you did play it.
Oh, okay.
And it was such a bad game.
I think I really cried when you put tag team wrestling on.
Oh, that was a horrible game. But I had a weird affinity for it because I liked any kind of violence as a kid. And there was like a few moves like the Western Lariat where it really looked like you creamed the guy.
That was one of those games, though. It was impossible to control, right? You couldn't really
the controls. This is how insane you would grab the guy and then you'd scroll through text-written moves and land on clothesline, body slam, whatever, and then it would do it. Even as a little kid, I was like, "Wow, this sucks."
See, while you were playing that, I was playing pro wrestling, which is a far superior game.
I was playing pro wrestling as well. And I've been playing it ever since, and I still have no hope of seeing Great Puma.
Which character did you use? Were you a King Slender fan?
No, I was the Amazon.
that is so like you. The closest thing to the creature from the Black Lagoon. See, if the reason why you never saw Great Puma is you have to use either King Slender or Starman.
Oh, I like Starman though. That flying elbow thing.
Mm-hmm. He was like Daredevil. He was blind. He relied on his senses.
Anyone from our audience that is familiar with pro wrestling has really loved this digression. I think somewhere in Japan, King Habayusha is. I fucked his name up, but that guy's loving it.
That was, I guess there was a few realistic characters, but like the Amazon guy, and then who was the other weird one? The King Corn Karn or something?
I thought Starman was the other. Didn't his country of origin wasn't just like a question mark?
I thought it was USA. I thought that was hence the star.
No, I thought the star. I thought he was an alien of unknown origin.
I always thought King Slender was just either Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan, but he couldn't use the trademark. So I, being a wrestling fan, I always kind of went to something I could relate to. So King Slender was my guy.
Wow.
Nice.
I never felt worthy of choosing the kind of all-American alpha types. I always had to pick the freak.
Let's get back on track here.
Yeah.
So, booze, tunes, and entertainment.
Booze, tunes, and entertainment. And
so they're off to get strippers. Oh, wait, we forgot about good old Duncan.
Yeah, they meet Duncan in a very, how many unique things does this guy reveal that he does in one scene? He has a deli tray. He's got bagels. He's got everything. He's a rich guy, and the only thing he doesn't have is friends. And so he very blatantly is like,
be my friends. Take me with you.
Who doesn't want friendship, especially at college?
That's true. If I had just kind of been more of a Duncan type in college,
You would have bought a lot of friends.
Well, I didn't really have the resources to buy the friends, but I at least should have tried to talk to people. Did I ever tell you when
Good.
what?
Another digression.
Another
I like
digression.
the digressions.
When my ex-girlfriend at Berkeley, she like after I left Berkeley, she went to a party and she was telling some guys about her boyfriend, and they realized that they lived in the same dorm as me, and they were like, "Wait a second, your boyfriend is the recluse?" That was my nickname. I found out years later my nickname was the recluse.
That's funny.
And all I was doing was preparing my application for USC and like working on scripts and listening to Tori Amos and Morrissey. And that's basically the same now.
I think a lot of people would probably envy you for what you were doing then.
I agree. I envy myself. And just walking to... I remember seeing 19 movies in the month of February. I remember seeing the movie Hillary and Jackie 3 times in the theater.
Okay, that's a little excessive.
But we know that I loved Emily Watson at that point.
Yes.
All right, so one scene... Do you have anything else to say about the Duncan scene?
No, I think basically, so that's how the characters are on their way.
And then they get to downtown LA. They're looking at the buildings. They're seeing all the weird shit, all the weird people, and people can, it still kind of has that element, definitely. But then here's a weird moment with the car spinning.
Yeah.
What did you make of this?
Why did you think it symbolized something, or do you think it was just a weird scene?
Well, I don't want to involve another podcast in this, but the ongoing joke on How Did This Get Made, where Jason Mantzoukas is always saying, like, is this a Jacob's Ladder scenario? But that really did seem like a Jacob's Ladder scenario, because they end up like almost in an accident. The car just spins and spins and spins and spins, and there's tons of people around. And then when the car stops spinning, they're completely alone in like a weirder part of the neighborhood. And
that is interesting. I didn't even think of that.
I thought that it was going to go back to that maybe at some point. Watching the documentary, I see why they did it. But I also thought it was strange because if you were going to have that moment, it's just weird that they already knew the address of the place where Grace Jones's character is met later, and they were heading there. It wasn't like they were like, hey, let's go find a strip club. Then they go downtown, the car spins, then they're in a weird place, and then they see a strip club and they go in and, meet these vampires. They already knew they were going to the vampire place. They're already driving there. They already had the address. So the spinning scene just was kind of strange in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have to, I'll be honest, I didn't even think twice about it.
And I'm sure you saw in the documentary that they put the car on dollies and just had like 6 crew people pushing it. Yeah, and then just had the camera in the car, which I thought was pretty cool.
See, I thought that was more along the lines of the transition to the second act, but I just took it that way.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I guess, was that the second act, though? I think that still might be in the first act.
Yeah, I guess so, because they didn't meet the snow. Well, I guess when you...
I mean, it seems like the first act would have to end when they're in the club and Grace Jones has bitten the guy, right? Well, I don't know. Let's save the screenplay structure for John August's podcast. Okay, then the next big scene we have to talk about is the diner scene, because after the car spins, they end up in a abandoned area of downtown LA. They're looking for the club, and they come across this weird diner.
Yes, and that's where we meet the character Snow.
Yeah, that's where we're introduced to the whole concept of vampires, basically.
Well, it's ambiguous whether or not he's actually a vampire.
What? He definitely is.
Well, he never showed his fangs, though.
Oh,
I mean, at the time, it's ambiguous.
But he is with the other woman shows her fangs.
Well, she only had 3 teeth, though. So I think they still wanted you not to know for sure who the characters, where the characters stood.
Mm-hmm.
Because her teeth, she only had 3 teeth, and they made reference to her 3 teeth.
But they were definitely monster teeth.
Yeah, they were definitely monster teeth.
Well, see, now this raises an interesting point, because maybe that's why Snow and his gang were kind of anti the strip club people, because maybe they were kind of a different kind of monster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was weird that they were part of like half of them are like albinos.
That's true.
And so I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but like it definitely wasn't clear at that point if they were the vampires or not. I think like you knew what you were getting into with the film, but
yeah,
are these going to be the characters?
That's true. You don't think that Snow is going to be as minor of a character as he ends up being.
I really liked his character too.
Yeah, he was a cool presence. He's kind of the Boba Fett of Vamp, you might say.
Yeah. I mean, if you were going to do like a Vamp cosplay, you would probably want to do his costume.
Oh yeah, he'd probably be the breakout character.
I mean, if I was a kid, I would have wanted to have dressed like that. I would have probably asked my mom to go get me like an outfit like that.
And you could have pulled off Snow's look completely.
I could have. I probably had my hair bleached like that at some point in my life.
Did you feel like I felt when AJ had Snow by the balls? He grabs his balls.
Yes, he does.
And he has them for like 35 seconds of screen time. And I don't even know how I felt about it. Confused, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, well, to set that up, Keith was flirting with one of the female pseudo vampires, and she smiles at him, and that's when we see her monster teeth, and he kind of like looks away, horrified.
And she seems genuinely hurt, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
She takes it kind of an interesting way.
So at that point, Snow stands up for her and, wants to pull out a knife, and AJ steps in to protect Keith and then grabs him by the balls.
Well, right before that, though, there's the whole build up to Keith throwing the coffee. This, along with the final part, the editing was really weird. And it was also just weird because it's like, AJ throws the coffee.
Yeah.
But why did AJ throw it at Keith knowing that he would duck? Because throwing it at anybody would be bad in this situation. So he should have just thrown it clearly at someone. You know what I mean?
I think this is so in sync that they never miss a beat with each other. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. That's what I get. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a weird edit, like you said, but
well, it was just it goes back and it goes back and forth between the coffee cup. Like it's too many shots, but in a weird way, it's kind of like way too many shots. Steven Spielberg would not cut back and forth that many times in that scene.
That's true. But as far as Keith ducking, I think there's such a synergy between AJ and Keith.
All right, that part I accept.
Okay, so I mean, I didn't think that was that weird.
So they end up getting away from the guys, and here's a question I had. They keep saying 6 coffees. Was that to imply that there was more of them somewhere else?
Yeah, because when they walked outside after Duncan comes out of the restroom. And they're like kind of procrastinating outside. And like AJ's just like
Duncan has a great moment where he comes out of the bathroom and
wait, what was that?
I said Duncan has a funny moment where he comes out of the bathroom and he pretends to be like a janitor, basically, like, and he doesn't know those guys. And I laughed aloud at that moment. That was really funny.
Do you remember his line?
Louis, looks like it'll be another hour or so on these toilets. These pipes are tough. So if you excuse me, I'll get back to work.
Yeah. So then they go outside, and that's when they reference like they ordered 6 coffees. So it's implied that there were more numbers.
So then we get to the strip club where we meet Dee Dee Pfeiffer's character, who immediately knows Keith, but we don't know from where. And as we said before, she's just so lovable.
I'm Amaretto, not really. And I will be your waitress for this evening, guys. So what can I get for you, huh?
And like she's called away before we, it unravels more how they know each other.
Then we see Grace Jones's performance, which is very avant-garde, as you would say, and very strange.
Yes.
Would you have found this erotic as a kid?
Sadly, probably not. There wasn't much eroticism to it, really.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I thought it was more just like dance almost.
Oh yeah.
I thought actually a lot of this, for some reason, like usually as a kid, that stuff, anything sexual or erotic appealed to me. But like in this film, it didn't treat it that way. Like pretty much all the strippers' performances really weren't like stripper-esque.
Yeah.
They were more just like it seemed like they, and I guess it was intentional that they didn't want to.
Not since Adam Egoyan's Exotica has there been a less erotic strip club.
But I mean, as we learned, they're all vampires.
Mm-hmm.
So their intentions are not really so much stripping, but to lure meals.
Yeah, so a lot like From Dusk Till Dawn, this is like a strip club where they're secretly like sucking the blood out of the more easy to get rid of customers.
Yeah, as Vic says later on in the film, that it's the
sickies, the degenerates, the forlorn, the lost, the lowlifes, the fucking dregs of humanity wind up here, and we take care of them.
Those are the people that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And in the case of Mistaken Identity, our heroes get sucked up into that world.
Yeah. AJ ends up getting killed by Grace Jones's character.
Yeah, I mean, his whole intention is that he wants to meet up with Katrina after her dance and proposition her to go back to to their dorm or the frat. But the other thing is like immediately after seeing Grace Jones's character Katrina dance, he's just like,
"Wait till those whips the dipshit buy see this."
What? They weren't waiting around.
One thing that when they go into Grace Jones's like kind of the back area, like her lair, you see a fish tank with like a moray eel. Just like compound bows, it seems like moray eels, they really had their day in the sun in the 80s. Although not in the sun. Seems like they like the darkness. But moray eels, they were big back then. And this is not a joke. This is for real. In the previous episode, at one point, you said, "Oh, I thought my life was going to be when I was an adult is going to be like going to the movies and like hanging out and like making out with chicks." And I said, I didn't know what my life was going to be. But now when I saw that, I remembered, I thought that my life would be eventually I'd be old enough and mature enough to have a saltwater fish tank.
That was your ambitions in 1986?
Yeah, I was like, oh, it seems like so difficult. And I hear it's so hard to do. But someday I'm going to have it all together. I'm going to have that clownfish. And this is pre-Finding Nemo. I'm going to have that clownfish. I'm going to have that moray eel. I'm going to have the lionfish, but I'm never going to touch it. And
we all wanted a lionfish.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, and it just looks so amazing at night. My 300-gallon tank.
See, it's funny, in 1986, like, I wanted adult things. Like, I knew I'd be an adult someday. But I still believe that, like, I'm going to have, like, this huge display for my G.I. Joe figures. Like, those are coming with me to adulthood.
Yeah.
And like nowadays, I guess that would be acceptable. But like once I entered, teen years, I was just like, I'm done with GI Joes. Like never looked back on those. But at the time, it was like,
I think
that was going to be an entire room.
I had a subconscious desire for years past being appropriate that I was like, at some point I am going to do like an amazing G.I. Joe diorama.
I actually remember going to bed as a kid at night, like thinking about this display and having like my wife be like I had a wife and she was just like so into it. She's just like, oh, that's so cool that it's all behind glass. And it's like the entryway to the house. You have to walk down like a corridor with like glass displays on both sides with all G.I. Joe stuff.
Well, this sounds pretty cool, I guess.
It's funny because you can do it now, but
didn't you used to always say that you wanted a full-size Star Wars chess set where you'd push around like life-sized figures?
No, that was I believe that was one of your plans, but I did want a land speeder, not a land speeder, a speeder bike.
Oh yeah.
I thought that would be cool, even if it was like just a motorcycle that had the body of a speeder bike.
Well,
I thought that would be really cool.
I feel like intense nostalgia should be in for another like 8 months, and so you should get that speeder bike now, like tomorrow.
Or get it custom made, spend thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Let me ask you something unrelated.
Okay.
There's a scene where Keith, right around this time, accidentally eats a bowl of bugs. Some people say that bugs are the protein of the future. Would you eat bugs? You could order them on Amazon.
I do know there's like a new craze of eating bugs. I think crickets are one of the bigger ones.
Oh yeah, crickets are like they're like the
I don't know. I'm such a like. I don't know. I feel like I'm such a like a picky eater that like I just know, having grown up not eating delicacies like that like I would just gag.
Yeah.
So I have no interest in eating that. I'll probably stick to Soylent.
Here's.
Do you have an answer to that? Are you eating bugs? Are you eating bugs as we speak?
I wanted to eat bugs. I actually put a lot of them in my cart on Amazon, and I was like, and I'm not even going to tell anyone that I'm eating bugs. I'm going to like get into eating bugs. That's going to be the protein I eat. And then one day someone's going to come over, see me doing it, and they're going to be like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah, I eat bugs now. It's not even to be like a jock about it. Like, I like them, and this is what we should do for the planet.
Do you realize where you would have put yourself if we were in school still? If we were back in like middle school? Like, you would have...
it couldn't have been worse than where I was.
I think you were better than where you would have been.
That's true.
You would have... Socially, you would have been at the bottom tier. You would have been below the creeps.
Instead, it was just like third from the bottom.
you were with the creeps. You would have been below. Allergies and eating bugs is... I don't even know if that works now. I don't think there's a cool like niche audience for that.
Really? I feel like having allergies and eating bugs is the modern man.
And he was a good friend.
Would you agree that this movie kind of made you think of Drive, and you were like, oh, Drive is kind of the most influential movie of the last 10 years?
I mean, Drive has a better soundtrack, I'll say that.
Yeah, the soundtrack to this is very forgettable.
If it had some synths, man, it would have killed it. It would have been so great.
If they had Richard Einhorn from Blood Rage on this film,
I'm missing Richard already.
This would be, no offense, Arrow, this would be a Criterion.
Yeah. Just to go off track for 1 second, how come there was no commentary track on the DVD, on the Blu-ray?
I don't know. It seems like all those people were hanging around. They could have recorded it.
I know. Maybe on the re-release. So, anyways, back to the film for a second. Do you remember? The point back to Amaretto.
Yeah,
it's an ongoing theme where she's trying to tell Keith how they know how she knows him, and she kind of gets upset when he's clueless. There's times where she gets irritated. Do you remember there's a scene she's across the bar and he like waves to her?
I wrote this down because I didn't understand what had happened at first.
Yeah, so in this scene, so she's across the bar like serving somebody and taking like the empty bottles, and she sees Keith and they like wave and smile at each other, and then she grabs the empty bottle, and puts it down on the table and spins it, and he just looks like confused, and then she gets angry and like walks off, and you've come to realize it's because how they know each other. They in middle school, they played spin the bottle, and they kissed each other.
Yeah.
So she was dropping a clue, which he didn't remember.
Yeah, but it was such a random thing to do, but it was also small enough that you're not really going to remember it. So that was kind of a really weird moment. I was like, what am I supposed to make of this?
It's funny because like seeing that and seeing the spin the bottle thing and them referencing middle school, like it made me remember my first kiss.
Oh, let's hear about this.
That was a disaster. This is going to be such a tangent, but I think I told you a story before, right?
It's not ringing any bells.
Okay. I'm still embarrassed. I'm mortified by this one, but
go on.
I was in sixth grade. I was new to sixth grade. Sixth grade was the next school. That was the start of middle school for us. And it was probably around September, and I wound up dating probably one of the most popular girls in seventh grade.
Who is it?
What I'm talking about?
I'll buzz out the name. Oh yeah.
Okay. So I wound up dating one of the most popular girls in seventh grade, and at first, like sixth grade, I didn't really hit puberty till a little after that, so I was still so confused by the concept of a girlfriend. And basically what we're doing was like passing notes, and then like I was talking about like such inane things like, oh, I got a new Game Boy game, or like can't wait to play some basketball. Like stupid. Oh, which game did I get?
Yeah.
Probably the Turtles game, I'm going to say.
That is a one that's worth bragging about to a girl.
So it got to the point where, we're talking on the phone, and she obviously, wanted to escalate things, and it got around. She told some friends, and like they came up to me like early one day and was just like, oh, she wants to make out. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, we'll do that eventually. And she's just like, no, like today, like after school. So of course, like, my heart's racing at that point, and like for the rest of the day, I was like legitimately horrified, like that. Oh my God, I gotta make out with this girl at the end of school. I don't know what to do, and like I don't know about you, where you first heard about friends making out with girls, but like
in grad school.
The technique that was explained to me by the one friend that had experience was that like make like if you're like looking through your hand like a eyepiece, like a binocular or something.
Okay.
That's like stick your tongue in there and move it around.
All right.
So it made zero sense. And so this whole day I'm like anxious and thinking like, should I fake being sick? Should I get sent home? Should I get detention? It was really like a 3 o'clock high.
Stand up and like throw your pumpkin pie against the wall.
Get me out of here! I never killed anybody!
But do you remember 3 o'clock high? Did you ever see that? And like he's supposed to fight the bully at the end of school, and the whole day he's like trying to get out of it. That was like me. And like I was getting such cold feet. Like at each period, like it was just sweating and dreading the day, and like just like the why me, and like maybe I should just break up with her. But anyway, so the end of day approaches, and I quickly go to my locker, grab my stuff, and try to make an exit for the door, like hoping like like explain like, oh, we missed each other, like get out of there. And as I'm heading towards the door, I remember this so clearly. I'm about to push it open and make my break, and I'm just grabbed from behind by like some guy I knew.
Some guy.
And like just pulls me right back into the school. And next thing I know, I'm in the middle of like a mosh pit. Like I'm circled around by people. It's very surreal, and I still have bad memories of this. But do you remember like in like a pit fighter? Like I was like a pit fighter. Like do you remember Lionheart? Like in those underground fights, like, just surrounded.
And like a pit fighter. You're doing the moves. They're not even like connecting with the person you're trying to fight. You're like, oh, what the hell? Why did I pick the wrestler?
I'm like looking around, like for my exit. Like what's going on? Like the deer in headlights. I was just completely thrown to the wolves. And what's it called? And I was just like, my last hope was like maybe a teacher will break it up, think there's a fight, and there's like,
fight.
And like the lobby area, this is in the lobby, so it's right outside like the principal's office, and of course nobody shows up. And I'm just like, oh shit, this is going to happen. And next thing I knew, like Moses parting the Red Sea, the other side of the pit just opens up, and in walks the girl, my girlfriend at the time. And so she's coming over.
This really is like 3 o'clock high.
It really is. And she comes over to me, and she's standing in like, I'm retelling this story. My heart's pounding. I'm reliving it.
Wow.
And she's just like, you ready for this? And I was just like, I think I made like a sound like a, like trying to say like, yeah, but all I could get out was a sound. And she leans in. And I remember my eyes were still open, so I'm seeing her with closed eyes, like leaning in, and that angle's a little weird. So we're locking lips, and she somehow like I'm kissing, but I don't know what making out is. So like my lips are firmly pressed together, and somehow like I feel her tongue like trying to nudge its way through. And I remember like this touching tips, and like I was just like, all right, I did it. It's over. Like I was relieved. And like at that point, after we like were away, like people were like either cheering or like making fun of me. Like I don't know what was going on. And I quickly like made my exit. Like didn't even like say bye to her. Just like got my stuff and got on the bus. It was traumatic. But I get on the bus, and the worst part is, I sat down on the bus and I teared up. I remember like having tears roll down my cheek the whole way home, and like people were like, "What's wrong?" And like having no answer for it.
And they're married to this day.
Well, do you remember your first kiss? I mean, we're way off topic here.
No comments.
It was almost 2 months ago. You don't remember that?
No comments.
So, my question is, if I was going through my collection of Garbage Pail Kids, where would I find her?
Definitely in like the 5th or 6th series when things were getting like gross but just mundane.
Like where they stopped trying to be clever with the names and just went with anything.
Yeah, they're just like lose or.
I think that's a real one. I think that's a real Garbage Pail Kid.
Speaking of weird looking freaky people, I noticed that the elevator operator in the elevator scene has your haircut.
I might have to post pictures of myself to prove that that's not accurate.
Well, it's a very obvious toupee that I'll be having. I'll be ordering that from Amazon in 9 days. I wanted to tell you about an idea for a film that I had that I think you're going to like. That was inspired by this movie. On our very next scene, basically, the elevator scene. Can we jump to the elevator scene?
Yeah.
I'm sure it made you. Keith's in the elevator. The elevator has a bit of a mind of its own. He's trying to get out of it, and it starts rising up. And I'm sure that reminded you of the same movie that it reminded me of. Right?
What, that he's trapped in the elevator or trapped in between the elevator?
That his arms are about to get ripped off by the elevator.
Are you thinking of Total Recall?
Yes, I was thinking about Total Recall.
What the fuck did I do wrong?
Here's my idea for a movie. Ready?
Okay.
It's like a Bergman-esque, very serious drama, and it takes place at the party that Cohagen invites Arnold to.
I'm having a party tonight. Why don't you and Melina drop by? Remind him, Doc?
The party that Arnold says, like, see you at the party, Richter. It takes place at that party, but Cohagen's dead, Richter's dead, so everyone's depressed. And things on Mars, they don't know how to deal with that. So it's just like a really kind of intense drama about the fallout of the events of Total Recall. all at this dinner party.
We find out if that's an implant or did that actually happen?
No, everything actually happened. All of Total Recall actually happened. I refuse to say that it was a dream, even though Paul Verhoeven says it's a dream.
See, I'm on Paul Verhoeven's side. It's so obvious it's a dream. But
well, no, of course. But you know, another connection Total Recall has to Vamp is that I would describe D.D. Pfeiffer's character as sleazy, demure.
I like the impression. Back to when AJ was killed by Queen Katrina.
Yeah.
Did you actually think he was done for? Did you think he was dead? Which he is dead, but...
Yeah, but he comes back as a vampire. I actually did think he was dead, and I can't believe I did.
I know. The fact that he comes back another time after that, he comes back twice.
Yeah. That was that was a good payoff. You know, Keith's hiding in the bathroom stall. We know someone's coming for him, and I think that we both have thought, like, as a kid in the 80s, there were so many scenes that took place when you're hiding in a bathroom stall. I was pretty sure that, like, when I was an adult, I was going to have a saltwater fish tank, and sometimes I'd have to hide in a bathroom stall. And when AJ appears, that was a very satisfying, surprise, great moment. You could tell that guy was going on to a big screenwriting career.
It was definitely good that he reemerged, even though he's a vampire. But I think we get one of the better scenes of the film of when Keith and AJ are where are they locked in, are in the back room together after one of the strippers turns to a vampire and tries to kill Keith. AJ saves him.
Oh,
but then he reveals to Keith that he, even though he loves him as a friend, he's hungry
Yeah, he sees him as food. That was an interesting scene, and it was well acted and stuff. It's funny because when the scene first started, and he was like,
I'm a fucking zombie now! I mean, look at me.
I was like, whenever I used to watch vampire movies as a kid, I was like, let me please be a vampire. I was convinced I was going to have a saltwater fish tank, be a vampire, and have to hide in bathroom stalls. And
he also pointed out that they're boring people to hang. How did he know they were boring people to hang out with?
That was weird. It seemed like he suddenly had like a DNA of the other vampire maybe, and had some experiences.
Yeah, I do like the way, like he said, like all the tropes of a vampire film are real. He's like, the sunlight kills us, the stakes, the reflection, like he just goes through like all like, you know.
Yeah, and that he has written down on a piece of paper that they gave him. So it's a very confusing origin story for AJ there as the vampire.
He's confused, but you know, he can't resist, and he, you know, kind of tells Keith that he's going to kill him, and like Keith says, like, if you're going to do it, I just don't want to be like you. And he's just like, what do you mean like me? Like, takes it very personally.
That was offensive of Keith. He doesn't even know what the new vampire self is like.
I feel like I would have liked to hang out there as a vampire.
I would have been like, transform me immediately and let's fucking embrace this.
You would have said, transform me immediately. Give me that elevator conductor's hairpiece. and some bugs. The bugs is a new craze as well.
I would have been like, I can stand my level of hair for the next like 5 minutes. So let's freeze time now. And I'll be a fucking vampire, and I don't want to look at myself in the mirror in a dressing room anyway.
Well, you would get the moray eel as well, so it's like your ideal lifestyle.
Oh my god! Imagine how many moray eels I'd go through. I'm on my 300th pet that I've loved.
So what winds up happening in this scene? AJ winds up stabbing himself as he lunges towards Keith.
Oh yeah, yep.
And there we go. We think AJ is dead. He killed himself to protect Keith.
In retrospect, it really would have been, you know, kind of silly to bring him back and then kill him like a scene later. So we should have known he'd be back.
They got me. I mean, it was good misdirection. Like I was fooled.
No, I liked it.
So the next scene, I guess, is that they're going to kill Keith anyway. Now the club owner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did they ever say how they were going to kill him?
Well, I think they were vampires, so it was kind of implied.
Like, just give him to the queen? Like, she was just kind of hiding in the shadows at that point.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the character of Vic is just obsessed with Vegas and classiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how Keith recognized that. Maybe by the pictures on the wall of, like, the Vegas icon.
Oh, yeah.
The old crooners, but... Well, he does actually. I guess Vic actually references some of them, like Louis Prima.
Yeah,
but anyway,
that's just having an actor like Chris Makepeace. He put that scene over.
He did, and he creates a diversion by saying that he wants
a last round, kind of a last request, like they do in Vegas.
They do that in Vegas? Whoa, that's classy. Now that's classy. Sure.
And then he winds up torching the bar.
Mm-hmm. Which I did not. And I honestly, sometimes I'm a little slow on realizing what's happening. When they were throwing the liquor all around, I should have realized that that's what they were doing. But I was just like, oh, he's gonna pretend to be drunk, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he's going to, like, you know, knock him out. So that was actually a more clever scene. What they did.
He said to Dee Dee Pfeiffer, he said to Amaretto, like, pour the stuff around. So you thought she was going to do it too?
Yeah, I thought they were both going to do it, and they were going to be like, oh, we're so wasted, oh my gosh. And then they were going to, like, trick the vampires.
Yeah, so anyway, so the bar's, you know, up in flames, and they make their exit through a trap door,
mm-hmm.
which I guess is just...
one little moment I liked before this also is when Vic, the bar owner, is talking to Keith, and he says, like, everybody in this town is vampires, and then he says that they're everywhere, implying, like, on a more global level. And it just created a world in that moment that, first of all, it did feel like everyone in downtown LA was a vampire, and it just it had, like, a nice texture to it.
Okay, so one funny line that was just such like a subtle moment was like when Keith is just like screams out in the strip club to all like the patrons, like, "Hey, all these people are vampires," and one of like the bar guys like says, "Hey, that doesn't make them bad people."
Oh yeah, I
Which
like
thought
that line.
So anyway, so where we at that they escape the club, Duncan, Keith, and Amaretto, and there's like car chase scene.
Pretty effective car chase scene.
Yeah, they got trapped.
When they're trapped and the forklift truck is coming and the other car is coming. That was a good moment. I even, when they really smashed together, I was like, that was an effective bit of destruction.
Yeah. How much did he hate that guy that was stalling as he was getting into his car and just like couldn't get out of the space? Like were you yelling at the screen? Like, move!
Oh, I didn't remember that part, so I've just fucked up.
Well, anyway, so after they do escape from the vampire people, Duncan announces that he's hungry, and the camera pans to him, and he's a vampire, an old man.
Yeah,
vampire.
That was cool.
And
wait, one thing I wanted to say. Sorry, I found myself thinking with this movie. The guy who did the makeup, Greg Canham, did we say his name was Greg Canham? Greg Canham. He also did Lost Boys, and it kind of seems like that's kind of the default look. Like I see a lot of vampires in movies have that kind of like, it seems like that influenced the Buffy look as well. The kind of like transforming someone who's normal looking to like the big brow evil vampire face.
Yeah, even in one of my favorite horror films, Night of the Demons, like Angela has that look, and she's a demon. She's not even a vampire. So now, after Duncan turns to a vampire, I was wondering when did that happen? Who transformed him?
I think
because he was in the car for a while. Like, is it like an illness thing where it sets in?
No, he definitely was in the club, didn't he? Wasn't he unaccounted for in the club at one point?
He was, but then they were in that car scene and they escaped for a little while. Like, so I'm saying, is it like a gradual? Like,
well, it's always like a gradual transformation.
I would need instant gratification as far as being transformed.
Yeah, my life for those 4 days until I became a vampire would be it'd be like when I'm flying somewhere and I like don't want to fly there, and like so life sucks up until that flight is over. It's like no way to enjoy I would not be enjoying my last sunrise.
So what happens? So where are we at now? Like, I don't know if you want to skip over some stuff.
Yeah, let's definitely skip over because it's kind of like a generic kind of chasing around, done with style, but I don't know.
Basically, at this point now, Keith and Amaretto are surrounded by the town vampires, and then they're saved by the albino vampires showing up. See, the weird thing in the documentary is they refer to the albinos as sometimes just albinos and other times as vampires. But at this point, I guess he realized that they're just like another like faction of vampires.
Yeah, it was cool because it really sets up, as I said before, like it sets up a kind of a interesting world without really going into it.
Yeah, because they do, like Snow does say, like, what gang is this? So there's obviously different gangs of vampires.
Yeah.
And that club where Katrina is like the queen, that's just one group. And that's their territory, I guess. But
one thing in this scene that I bet you noticed, I know you love the goofs in movies. Did you notice when the little girl jumps at Snow at the very last second in that shot, her harness is like very, very visible?
Oh, I didn't see that. I saw one of the other goofs, but not that one.
What was the other one?
After Queen Katrina dies, and you can see one of the people moving the prop skeletal hand or arm.
Interesting. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. So now, at this point, they're still kind of getting away from the vampires, but Amaretto decides to reveal herself to Keith that her name's Allison Hicks, and they met at Seaside Heights, which seems like, very poorly planned reveal. But I think that's part of her quirkiness, correct?
Poorly planned in what way? Do you mean?
That's the moment she chose to reveal herself.
I guess so. I mean, it's also just,
I guess
it took her a long time to reveal that.
I know we were waiting, and then she finally reveals it, and it's kind of like
it's very anticlimactic.
Yeah, exactly. And even Keith is kind of still like unsure.
Mm-hmm.
But
writer director Richard Wenk is from New Jersey.
Yeah, Seaside Heights. I growing up, like my cousins lived over there, and we would go there every summer. So a lot of fond memories of old Seaside Heights.
See, I never had the New Jersey thing, so I don't have those memories.
Well, I didn't really have a choice. It was just more of a family get together.
No, I didn't think you were making the vacation decisions when you were 7.
7, 8 years old, hopping into the Subaru wagon.
Yeah, you're like, okay, this time we're going back to Epcot Center.
I thought the coolest thing, my older cousin, she dated this guy that his father operated owned one of the arcades on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights.
Mm-hmm.
And he had keys to everything. So after like everything kind of closed, I got to go to the arcade and play like games, just unlimited amount of time, like on each game. And this is like the height of like Mortal Kombat and like Street Fighter 2. And like,
I think this is like a aspirational dream you had that you've now remembered as a memory.
It's a false memory is what you're saying?
It could be. I wanted to say something about the slow archery in the final moment. The slow archery.
As an archer yourself, yes.
As an archer myself.
Well, the bloody fingers reminded me of you.
In what way?
Your bass playing.
Oh, yeah.
The way you would pluck strings. I don't know what you were doing, but your fingers would bleed.
Well, I couldn't use a pick for some reason. And so like I had to, during like, pick only parts, I had to like just kind of mash my hand against it. And the funny thing is, even though we could have totally been a band that was like jumping all over the place and going crazy, we all stood exactly in place. So it would be like, oh, that's the band where the guy bleeds everywhere while standing like a statue. That's actually a pretty good metaphor for life.
I thought you were going to say because you were born without an opposable thumb that you weren't able to grip the pick.
Well, I did discover that I looked at my hand and my fingers are so short and stubby. And then I've noticed that people who are good at guitar and instruments, their fingers are longer than 1 inch each.
You need some slender fingers?
You need some slender, mobile fingers.
Yeah.
So I don't blame myself. But that's why archery has been a great thing for my life. And so, yeah, the slow archery of the scene reminded me of some slow archery in Monster Squad.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and
we're the Monster Squad.
Last night, while quite high, I wrote a long thing about how this taps into the evolutionary memory of facing down a wounded mammoth. Like you've been hunting with your other caveman buddies, and everyone's gotten an arrow in or a spear in, and the mammoth is like basically almost dead, but it's like limping towards you, and they're all like, Ed, do it. And you've got like the bow and arrow, and you're getting ready to like finish it off, and then you just fuck it up, and it's like striking out in softball. And you just like...
That reminds me of how you perform sometimes in Rocket League.
Yes, exactly. Just like a complete whiff, and then the mammoth just stomps over you and dies on top of you. Like it breathes its last breath into your mouth. And so you think its last breath is your last breath, but you're like, oh, my last breath was like 3 seconds ago. I'm dying too.
The thing I wondered in that in that scene was, what was Katrina's like end game? Like she just comes out of like the shadows with Allison or Amaretto, and like, why didn't she bite her beforehand?
That was a really weird scene because so much time was given to Keith. I mean, Katrina really had no respect for his archery abilities at all. She was I'll give you 3 minutes to get ready and you can get closer.
Yeah, she saw that he was drawing like the bow, like she had to have known. And plus she didn't even at least kill Allison in the process.
I think I think Helen Keller could have made that shot. Well, the president joined us for that potentially offensive joke, so that one wasn't me.
But anyway, so she gets shot in the face with an arrow or through the mouth.
Yeah, the good guys win, basically.
Yeah, and Allison stabs her in the chest with a pipe, but she's not dead yet. She's still, lurching forward. And at this point, Keith, looks up and reveals some sunlight coming in through like a vent or something.
Yeah.
And opens, how many does he open? Like 3 vents? He like traps her with some sunlight and then unleashes the full blast of the sun.
I thought that, didn't you think, because Amaretto stabs a pipe into her, creating kind of like a bullseye in where it seemed like her heart would be. I was positive Keith was going to show off those archery skills one more time. Maybe I'm just archery crazy. So I was like, I thought this was a film about bowmanship.
Saltwater tank, archery range, Star Wars chess set.
A life-size Star Wars chess set, like with like the Wampa is like the castle, like the Crimson, what are they called? The red, what are they called? The Emperor's
Guards?
Crimson Guards. That's
what are they called? I don't know. Jesus, we grew up with Star Wars. We don't even know what it's called.
Anyway, they're all kind of on dollies, much like the dollies that they use to get the spinning car effect in the film Vamp. And, you push them around on your coastal estate against like Mark Hamill.
Now, can we just address the dying scene of Katrina?
Yes.
She basically melted.
Yes.
Now, she was also, at this point, she was no longer wearing a headdress. She was bald.
Okay.
So you have that in common. But she like melts, which was a cool effect.
Yeah. And
she winds up looking kind of like Baron Samedi from the James Bond films. She had like the white makeup.
Interesting.
And basically she disintegrates to this like skeletal remains. And one of the most bizarre moments to me, it didn't fit the joke of that she slowly starts raising her arm up.
Yeah.
And the characters are like opening their eyes wide, like what's going to happen? She's still alive. And then she gives them the finger and then the hand just goes like limp.
Yeah,
it didn't fit the humor of the film. It didn't fit like the style. It just seemed like a cheap, bad joke.
Yeah, it didn't seem like something Katrina would do.
No.
Richard Wank, if you're listening, you need to go back and take that shot out.
We'll have him on the show next week. We can tell that to him in person.
But overall, Vamp, a strong thumbs up.
Yeah. One last thing I'd like to say, though, that in case the audience is wondering, AJ does make one last appearance. This one we thought the film was over.
Yep.
They're threatened. The heroes are threatened once again, and AJ comes and saves them.
Mm-hmm. And the heroes are threatened by such like a non-essential. It's kind of like the last scene of Die Hard with not even the blonde terrorist Carl, who it kind of works with. It's like if it was with the guy who he shot in the balls, that guy comes. You're like, that guy? That's the final guy. But AJ takes care of him.
Yeah, and then he makes they kind of joke around a little bit. He says like he can still go to school, but night school he'll get a job working the graveyard shift, and all of a sudden, Keith and Allison are dating. They walk off, and AJ's following from the sewer, and that's pretty much how the film ends.
And it's a cool last shot because, as we learned in the documentary, they were able to hold traffic only for a couple minutes.
And the traffic's real, yeah.
It's real, yeah. And Dee Pfeiffer and Chris Makepeace walk off, and then the traffic starts. And it's clearly really early in the morning, and it just really... I'll never forget that last shot of Vamp.
Yeah, so great film.
Great film. And I'm going to do something that we've never done here in Archers of Horror and give a shout out to James Branscombe, Elijah Drenner, and Heather Buckley, who were the principal creatives behind the documentary on the DVD, which I really enjoyed. And to be honest with you, it made me cry.
Why? How is that possible?
Well, when they were talking about making a low-budget movie together, it reminded me of times that I've made low-budget movies. And when Elliot why do I keep forgetting his last name? Elliot Davis says he's like a small budget experience like this. It doesn't bring out the best in you. It reveals who you are. And I was like, oh, that is so true. Because it really, those kind of extreme conditions reveal who you are and they bring you closer to people, just like the cast and crew of this were clearly close and have been for life. And it made me think of best friends I've made who I'm still in touch with and who were just best friends for the length of the shoot. And, you know, I don't know. It was that like 40-minute documentary captured filmmaking in a way that I haven't really seen any other DVD special features so movingly encapsulate. So a big thumbs up to those people.
Since you mentioned that, it's kind of making me a little sad. I'm kind of missing some friends that I haven't seen in a while. You probably know them as the Bones Brigade.
Who's the Bones Brigade?
Oh man, you don't remember the Bones Brigade? That was like the big Powell Peralta skate team, like the who's who of skateboarding.
Are they in the documentary All This Mayhem? That's all I know about skating.
No, but
did you watch All This Mayhem?
Yes, I did.
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I watched it as my house was being getting central air installed.
That's that's what the director wanted. That's as the filmmaker intended. It was seen while central air was being installed. All right, but Vamp was another solid pick, and stylistically, it could not be more now in terms of the color palette of this movie is the same color palette as in the poster for Ingrid Goes West. So that's on trend. So I would check out Vamp for sure.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad Arrow re-released it, and I'm glad I revisited it because I haven't seen that in quite a number of years.
Yeah, I had never seen it. It was always just kind of a mysterious box cover to me in my youth.
Yeah, I remember going to this independent VHS stores or video rental stores and seeing that cover, and I was intrigued, but I never had the desire to rent it at the time.
Yeah, me too. I don't know what it was, but it's amazing that there's gems like this lurking about. And we mentioned the transfer Arrow did earlier, but I mean, kill me.
Well, I mean, I do have high hopes for future Arrow films that we will be watching.
Yeah, and I guess it's that time of the show to reveal the pick for next week.
I'm very excited. I can't wait to hear what you're picking.
I'm a little worried that you might be disappointed in this pick.
I wonder if I have it already.
I'm almost positive you have it, and I think you've seen it, and I think your impression of it might be lukewarm. But I want to talk about it because it feels, first of all, it's a movie I've always been curious about. I've never seen it before. And it feels very of a piece with some other stuff I've been watching lately. And I just have to ask you, what have you done with Solange?
I have not seen it.
Really?
I do have it, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's funny. I was actually going to put that on the other day, but I wound up falling asleep. So,
well, that is my pick for next week.
I'm just waiting for who's going to pick the first complete dud.
You
might have just picked it.
No. I don't think this is going to be a complete dud, but I have one in mind that I think will be. So that's.
Yeah, I have a couple duds.
Listeners should stay tuned for all of these and more on Archers of Horror.
See ya.
And this is where I'm ending the show.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right. Bye.
Oh, you should end it already.
And I just want to say,
Kill me.